The Terrifying Lies Podcast, with music and stories by Craig Nybo. Hello, friends, and welcome to the Terrifying Lies Podcast. I'm your host, Craig Nybo. If you want to help this show survive, the best way is to support it on Patreon at patreon.com/terrifyinglies. Even a small contribution can ensure that the series will continue to roll forward. While you're at it, share your favorite episode on your social media and leave a positive review wherever you listen. Just a fair warning, today's episode is part 8 of a 10-part series. If you haven't heard from the beginning, I suggest you go back, otherwise you might find yourself more than confused. The story so far. On the brink of extinction at the hand of their mortal enemies, the Ice Beetles, an alien race, sends a crack squad of 5 elite soldiers into space aboard a salvaged Earth vessel in search of allies. Having encountered a space pirate cruiser, they managed to trap their evil captain and first made aboard their own vessel and board the pirate ship. Once aboard, they discover that the whole ship is commanded by a single genius alien creature called Packerhound. Glad to be out from under the thumb of his former pirate overlords, Packerhound has decided to help the Poison Nickels on their quest. But can they find an ally strong enough to save their race from their enemies? You'll have to listen to find out. The story is entitled Poison Nickels, Across the Universe, Part 8 of 10. See you on the other side. Poison Nickels stood on the bridge around Packerhound as he clicked away on a keyboard at his control station. He accessed systems, checked the ship's status reports, went over a pre-hyperdrive diagnostic check, shut down pulse navigation power, and a host of other tasks. At first, he tried to explain every step as he readied the ship to shoot off into space at hyperlight speed, but it quickly became obvious to Packerhound that he had lost the Poison Nickels in translation. Only Winkle came close to following the complex circuitry and system modifications Packerhound had made to the blood drive so that he alone could navigate the ship. After a few minutes of running through diagnostics and readying systems, Packerhound turned to Chi and nodded his head submissively, a wry smile crossing his lips.
I reserve the honor of ignition for you, my new captain.
He pointed at the largest and most prominent seat on the bridge, a massive throne, overdone in every way, seated pretentiously in the center of the room.
The red button, if you will.
Chi trundled over to the throne. The rest of the Poison Nickels watched as he sat down on the magnificent seat. The captain's chair lacked comfort. It had been built for creatures with vastly different anatomies than Ice Beetles. Chi made a mental note that he would have Stig unbolt the horrendous thing and put it in storage. Nevertheless, Chi sat in the chair, more as a tribute to Packerhound than out of vanity. He looked up at the oversized screen. He glanced down at the big red button, the only button mounted on the throne's rake rest.
I'd set course for the Colindrome,
Packerhound said. Chi pushed the button. A bassy shake came from beneath the floor, from the engine room. The bridge vibrated momentarily, then the blood drive shot off into space. Chi had expected to be pulled by G-force, but once the blood drive jounced into motion, after a short disruption in counterpoise as the vessel reached hyperlight speed, a sense of grounding returned. All occupants of the ship could move about freely without any loss in equilibrium. Incredible, Winkle said.
There's still a small latency when the hyperlight speed drives switch over to exotic matter fuel sources. I'm trying to get the jitters out. I think it's a spindle alignment problem,
Packerhound said. You are a wonder, Winkle said.
Lots of practice, under extreme duress, I suppose,
Packerhound said.
Now, you'll want to know what you're in for. The Colindrome is a big venue, and the Pan-Galactic Prom Show has been a yearly celebration for decades. Give me a moment to access my database.
Packerhound turned to his workstation and clicked away on the keyboard. The front viewing window went dark. A complex network of data leapt to the screen, so cryptic and quick that only Packerhound could understand the readout. Packerhound said as he navigated through the patches of coursing data.
Yes.
He pushed a button on his workstation. The screen locked. A new window opened, filling most of the viewing screen's real estate.
Here's a news feed from the Associated Cross-Universal Press Consortium, and accessing their database with the search term Pan-Galactic Prom Show.
A logo appeared on the screen, a gigantic rocket, outfitted with a camera on its nose cone. High-octane music blasted through the bridge's speakers. A voiceover boomed out, low and rough, in an alien language that was nothing but a series of guberous guts. The bridge's translator protocol took over and bent the language so that all on the bridge could understand the newsreel.
For the 21st year in a row, Slink Arrowheart, concert promoter, is poised to throw the ever-pretentious Pan-Galactic Prom Show. And lately, it seems that the place to discover the latest and greatest in entertainers is none other than an obscure blue planet located in the interstellar neighborhood of Procyon, Altair, and Alpha Centauri, a little-known planet in the solar system known as Earth. With such interplanetary sensations as Alice Cooper and the Beatles, it's not a stretch to think that the Pan-Galactic concert promoters are on the prowl for new talent from this unlikely planet, seated at the edge of the Milky Way. But, as with most other installments of the Pan-Galactic Prom Show, held at the Colindrome since its infancy, this year's event does not come without controversy. Critics, as always, are pointing spurning fingers at Colindrome owner and prom show promoter Slink Arrowheart, accusing him of stirring up controversy that goes beyond the scope of his event.
A photo of an alien creature flashed up on screen. A tentacled beast with 3 eyes, covered with a tri-lensed pair of sunglasses, accessorized in a glitter of twinkling necklaces fashioned in exotic metals. The title, Slink Arrowheart, Pan-Galactic Prom Show promoter, appeared on the lower third of the photograph. The reporter's voice droned on.
Some blame Arrowheart for turmoil, even on far-reaching planets.
Video coverage from a war-ridden region on a distant planet flashed up on screen. A small, militant group traced their way across a broken street, strewn with overturned vehicles and rubble. Weapons rattled off barrages of gunfire as the small group made their way to cover. The shaky footage cut to an interview with one of the beings from the battle-scarred area, a short alien creature with nearly black skin and a pair of stout antennae protruding from its temples. The creature spoke to an off-camera journalist.
There's no love lost between the Trimics here on Loredan and Arrowheart. His deliberate efforts to stir up old grudges at his so-called prom show 2 years ago have caused civil war. If you ask me, Arrowheart should be tried and hanged for war crimes.
The video feed cut to the rear gates of a concert venue on Earth. A mob of teenage fans crushed against a series of beefy bodyguards. The camera whipped around to the venue's exit. A young pop star sparkling from head to foot with a gaudy mirrored suit moiré with iridescent patterns came from the venue's exit. He flashed a smile of ice-white teeth at a throng of teenage girls. The girls went crazy, throwing up heart hand-shaped symbols, screaming, some of them passing out in the crush and in the wonders of teenage longing.
Controversy surrounding the prom show exploded yet again this year after the assassination of teenage pop star Bieber, the Earthling entertainer slated to headline this year's event.
B-roll cut to Bieber shooting off a final wave at his fans and getting into a limousine. Seconds later, the limousine exploded, jettisoning fragments of metal and plastic into the crowd of adoring fans. The screams of fan lust turned into screams of terror as teenagers ran for cover, trampling one another, shoving away from the terrible scene. The reporter's voiceover cut in over the B-roll.
Although Brennan Nix, a member of Bieber's former band of Five Fingers, has come out and actively claimed credit for the young pop star's assassination, Bieber's headline bookings at this year's Pan-Galactic Prom Show once again brought Slink Arrowheart back into the spotlight.
The video reel cut to a docking hangar at the Colindrome.
As Arrowheart returned to the Colindrome from a talent scouting trip, he denied any allegations regarding Bieber's untimely death.
A throng of reporters accosted Slink, shoving microphones into his face as he got out of his interstellar sports cruiser. Slink smiled as he greeted the cameras, straightening his tri-lensed sunglasses. One of the reporters chimed in.
Mr. Arrowheart, the public needs to know. Did you orchestrate Bieber's slaying?
Everyone stalled, waiting for Slink to answer. Slink smiled and folded 2 sets of his tentacles over his slippery chest.
Come on, guys.
Slink said.
You really believe that I would have anything to do with killing such a rising talent? It's bad for business, man.
You say bad for business,
Another reporter said.
The box office receipts for the prom show this year have gone through the roof since Bieber's assassination.
Slink reached up with one of his tentacles and lowered his sunglasses. He rested all 3 of his eyes on the reporter who had made the comment.
What do you take me for?
Slink said.
Some kind of thug? I don't know why sales are on the fly. The bumping business also came with my announcement that the Collindrome will be giving 4% of this year's box office sales to the Bieber Foundation.
There isn't a Bieber Foundation.
One of the reporters said. Slink glanced sideways at the reporter, his smiles never fading.
There isn't? Well, I'll tell you what. The Collindrome will set up a Bieber Foundation. Then we will donate 4% of our proceeds to it. How does that sound?
Some of the reporters laughed. Others gnashed out a barrage of vicious questions.
Look, fellas,
Slink said, raising 4 of his tentacles.
I'd love to stay and chat all afternoon, but I got the Collindrome to run, and oh, by the way, I think this is as good a time as any to announce that the new headline act at the prom show this year will be none other than the Earth musical sensation, the Funk Toast Band. Space is limited, so get your tickets quick. As for a new warm-up act, I'm working on it. But always remember that Slink Arrowheart never disappoints.
The newsreel continued on, but Chi ordered Packerhound to stop the feed. Packerhound hit the pause button, leaving Slink Arrowheart's face, slithering and arrogant, up on the screen.
That's it,
Chi said, pointing a rake up at the Collindrome owner's shifty mug.
We are going to fill that vacancy. We are going to debut our music at the Pan-Galactic Prom Show as the opening act.
The other Poison Nickels and Packerhound all looked in random directions.
We haven't had enough time to practice,
Nasher said.
I'm not finished writing the songs,
Gorn said.
Pan-Galactic Prom Show is an all-universe class event.
Packerhound said.
Getting in will be tough, and you guys are, pardon my expression, nobodies.
Chi moved across the room, raising one of his rakes to emphasize his point.
Don't you see? We can use that to our advantage. We might not have the musical talent of some of the big acts out there, but we have a backstory that can break even the hardest heart. We'll hit them with truth, with our story. We're a race on the brink of extinction. All we want is to send our message out across the stars.
Sounds thin to me,
Nasher said. Chi pointed a rake up at Arrowheart's likeness.
All he wants is a story. All we have to do is give him one. He wants war. We have war. He wants underdogs. That's us.
But what about the music?
Gorn asked. Chi flicked his spicules and stood as tall as he could.
Remember the Beatles? How they invaded the western half of Earth with their sound? All we need to do is copy their sound. Remember their song, Help?
I hate to break it to you, but everyone in the universe knows who the Beatles are. And everyone practically has Help memorized.
Packerhound said.
I know we can't copy the Beatles, but from my research, I learned that there are other less-known bands that invaded the Western Hemisphere along with the Beatles. Bands that we can perhaps cover with less risk of discoverable creative infringement.
She turned to Packerhound.
Do you know of a musical act called the Dave Clark Five?
The Dave Clark what?
Packerhound asked, arching his eyebrows. Chi pointed a rake at Packerhound.
Exactly. And if you haven't heard of them, and I'm betting nobody has heard of them outside a small contingency on Earth.
Chi turned to Winkle.
Access the historical records. Go through the song registry of the Dave Clark Five. Find us a song that emulates our story, that sounds like the Beatles.
A smile came to Packerhound's face. he was starting to follow Chi.
We can use the Blood Drive's mini video studio to produce a Poison Nickels demo.
We'll fill it with heart.
Chi said.
With war.
Nasher said.
And with soul.
Gorn said. Chi raised 2 of his rakes and looked over his small company of friends.
Slink Arrowheart won't be able to resist. The Poison Nickels will debut, the biggest intergalactic party in the universe.
I will access the records, Winkle said.
And I will ready the video studio,
Packerhound said.
Beatles,
Chi said.
This is the moment that we begin broadcasting our message to the galaxy. This is the moment that we begin to bring our kind back from the brink of extinction.
Everyone nodded in solemnity. Nasher felt like an idiot in the costume Packerhound had given him. The Poison Nickels were members of an elite warrior class back on Hull, and here they stood, frocked in so much color and splendor that the whole scene threatened to burn Nasher's eyes from their stalks. Stig had loaded his exotic instruments onto the chroma green stage in the video studio. As the Poison Nickels stood behind their instruments, Packerhound adjusted the settings on all 5 of the studio's cameras. High-end devices Gar had looted from an intergalactic bootleg hyperwave station. He mixed the color levels, trimmed the apertures, and checked each camera for exposure and focus. Unlike Nasher, Winkle loved the long rope Packerhound had given him. He spun behind his instrument, causing a bell of fabric to expand around him. He couldn't erase the smile from his face. In a way, he felt guilty for having any pleasure at all, with his race so close to extinction. But even in the war-riddled ice caverns back home, he had made it a point to find pleasure in even the most dire circumstances. So he spun again and watched the fabric, so brightly colored, twirl. Packerhound stepped behind a control station where he could remotely adjust the cameras on the fly and edit video feeds from each of the devices in real time. He had, with the help of Winkle and Chi, gathered a collection of shots, footage from planets that resembled Hull. They'd found scenes of devastation, of smoke billowing from burning forests, of fire shooting from cavities in rocks, of weapons being loaded and discharged, of furry creatures that looked similar to voles crawling all over each other to get at husked-out carrion. At first, Packerhound had worried that the series of shots Winkle and Chi had selected would be too morose, but Chi insisted that they needed to get as close to the truth as possible. Packerhound tested each camera by working a series of joysticks on the console. He made a few adjustments to the sensitivity settings. He loaded the background footage to replace the green field all around the Poison Nickels. The studio worked perfectly, keying out the Poison Nickels and placing them in a convincing environment of war, boiling pots, weapons, fire, and chaos. After reviewing the discography of the Dave Clark 5, Packerhound had argued that the Poison Nickels needed an uplifting song to contrast against the clips of war and devastation. In the end, Packerhound and Chi had settled on Everybody Get Together, a song that promoted love and peace. Next, it came to Stig to re-engineer the song to make it resemble the sound he expected to come from the Poison Nickels. Stig isolated the vocal tracks from the Dave Clark 5 rendition and remixed the backtracks using some of Dave Clark's instrumentation, but mingled it with sound from the instruments he had created. The instruments the Poison Nickels would actually play should they get the gig at the Colindrome. After a few days of prep, even Nasher found a small amount of confidence that what they were doing was not a complete waste of time. But he still hated the wardrobe that Packerhound had selected.
In order for this to work, you must play your instruments with some amount of convincing proficiency,
Packerhound said.
We've been practicing every spare moment we have,
Winkle said.
And I have to say, I rather like the sound of the Tone Weaver.
So Stig had named Winkle's instrument.
I find it soothing.
He granted Stig a look of approbation. Stig smiled back at Winkle.
Above all things, this must feel original. No doubt there will be a small faction who's heard of the Dave Clark 5, but I think we have reworked the sound enough that even they will consider this a viable interpretation of the music,
Packerhound said.
Let's just do this thing,
Nasher said. wanting to get out of his brightly colored robe.
Everybody ready to tape in 5, 4, 3.
Packerhound counted off the last 2 numbers silently, indicating them with one of his 4-fingered hands. The live taping of the Poison Nichols cover of Everybody Get Together commenced. Packerhound ignored the copious amount of mistakes made by the Nichols as they fumbled through the intro of the song. They looked like they were playing with accuracy, and that was all that mattered. They'd have to spend the rest of transit practicing. They didn't have a prayer of landing even the smallest gig. Dave Clark's voice, heavily disguised by filters, took the center of the music. Gorn flittered her wings. She issued her tocsin into the toxinanon, another instrument designed by Stig. Gorn had spent more time with her instrument than the others. She worked the processor controls almost expertly. Although her actual tocsin would not be heard on the demo soundtrack, Packerhound thought that he could see how a certain faction might latch onto her enigmatic voice. The Poison Nichols' sound would take some getting used to, but if they committed time to practicing, there might be a place for their music. Gorn sang along with the Dave Clark Five's lyrics. Her face filled the screen, backed by a lush forest, handful of jungle monkeys swinging on vines, arching their way through the trees with nimble grace. One of the jungle monkeys missed a vine and plummeted to the ground. The camera followed the monkey and found it jittering in the dirt, its neck broken. The monkey went still. The camera tilted upward and settled on a mountain peak capped with snow. Packerhound worked the color wheel on the background shot and heated up the mountain until it looked like it was on fire. The camera tilted to the sky, found a white bird flitting its way through the air. Packerhound ran the footage through a filter, turning the white bird into an animated shape. The camera zoomed in on the bird's face just as a tear fell from its eye. The camera's point of view moved in over the drop and followed it as it descended toward the ground. Hundreds more drops joined the white bird's tear as it began to rain. The tears transformed into miniature firebombs. As they struck the ground, tendrils of flame arched away from them, catching the forests on fire all around the fallen monkey. The camera settled to the ground. The Poison Nichols band appeared, backed by a scene of fire and devastation. They played their instruments using plenty of emotion and movement. As directed by Packerhound, Gorn went into the song's chorus. The camera left the Poison Nichols and flew through the flames, ducking burning trees and charred vines. A few woodland creatures, perishing in the heat, ran for cover, fleeing in the peripheral view of the lens. The camera emerged from the flames and flew up a shallow rise where it found a horde of scurrying voles, their mongrel bodies writhing over each other, claws in backs and faces, a mad bramble of whipping tails, black pinhead eyes, and rage. The camera flew over the hordes of rodents and looked down a vista into a valley riddled with ice caves. The voles rushed down the rise, the camera tracking them as they tumbled over each other, madly seeking purchase on rocks, grass, bushes, and each other. The camera rushed ahead, leaving the voles behind. It entered one of the cave mouths and tracked its way through a tunnel until it settled on a 3D animated family of ice beetles. The father of the family stood in front of his wives and hundreds of children, resolute, ready for the vole rush. As the voles overtook the family of animated ice beetles, the camera veered off into another ice tunnel and found the Poison Nichols riding a floating transport through a tortuous cavern tube, playing their instruments. Packerhound smiled at the effectiveness of the shot. The video demo was shaping up. The Poison Nichols, still riding their floating transport, popped out of the cave into an alien jungle. The music tailed off. As the final refrains faded, Packerhound stood up from his editing station to give his last piece of direction.
Everybody, look up.
The Poison Nichols turned their heads upward and looked at the ceiling of the studio. Packerhound worked one of the joysticks, panning the camera up and away from the band. He smiled as he watched the final shot close the video. The camera continued its upward movement. A comet traced by, sinking with a final hiss from Winkle's tone weaver. Everyone stood still. Packerhound kept his eyes on the monitor, smiling so wide that he could feel the muscles at the edges of his mouth twitch.
And cut.
The Poison Nichols fell out of pose. Nasher immediately tore off his robe and tossed it behind him.
Brilliant.
Packerhound said.
You are brilliant. Now, if you can learn to play those instruments, you just might have a chance at the Colindrome.
How soon can we get a demo to Arrowheart?
She asked.
I think I have a way to bypass Arrowheart's slush pile and get it right on his desktop.
Great. Get it out as soon as you can.
She said. As Packerhound rewound the rough edit and began to make a few modifications, the Poison Nichols left the video studio. They headed back to their quarters. It wouldn't be long before they reached the Colindrome. They had to practice their instruments.
Thanks for listening. It means everything to this show when you tune in. Be sure to back Terrifying Lies by visiting patreon.com/terrifyinglies and contributing even a small amount. Be sure to leave a positive review wherever you listen, and of course, share your favorite episode on your social media. Until next time, I bid you sweet dreams. Or should I say, sweet nightmares.
This has been the Terrifying Lies podcast. Please, come again. You're welcome here.